We have invited Attorney Grace Marpuri to summarize for us the highlights of this law that seek to protect women in sports. Take it away, Attorney Grace.
Thank you for inviting me to present to you the highlights or salient features of the Magna Carta of Women in the Philippines, or the so-called 9710, particularly on the provision of the rights of women in sports. Talking about 9710, it is a comprehensive human rights law for women that seeks to eliminate discrimination against women by recognizing and protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of all Filipino women. We are all witness to the realities that women have been fighting for equality all throughout history. In sports, specifically, women were once not even permitted to watch the Olympic Games. After finally being permitted to participate in sports, women at one time had to undergo gender testing to make sure that they were not men trying to cheat the system. Even though the 21st century is supposed to be a time where everyone is equal, there are still many obstacles women have to overcome in order to be treated just as the male athletes do. Women have realized this inequality and started conventions that discuss how women need to support each other in sports. These conventions also help girls and women to be empowered and have confidence and eventually become great leaders in their life. Overcoming these obstacles help the women grow and become a stronger human being. The Magna Carta of Women in the Philippines is a big step to the realization of gender equality and equality in the country. It is actually the guaranteed in our Constitution, the very supreme law of the land, that women should be protected, to be treated equally, and be given opportunity with others. Even our international convention, which the Philippines is a member, have an advocacy that all women should not be discriminated, should be afforded equal treatment and opportunity in all aspects. Likewise, our laws have recognized that women played an important role in nation building. Many laws have been passed and enacted primarily to recognize women empowerment and their protection. Women have been recognized as among the marginalized sector that should be given importance and be afforded with rights and be given, if not deserved, equal treatment. Sadly, despite of all these efforts in the field of sports, records show that more than 60 national sports associations recognized by the Philippine Sports Commission, or the PSC, only 32 of them have female coaches. Also, there have been an alarming low representation of women coaches in the national pool. On record, actually, female coaches comprise about 14 to 17% of the total coaches population from 2016 to 2020. So the Magna Carta of Women in Sports contains women's in sports rights. Knowing this, by all concerned stakeholders will hopefully address some issues, concerns, and gaps in women's sports in the century. Sadly, despite of all these efforts in the field of sports, record shows that of the more than 60 national sports associations recognized by the PSC, or the Philippine Sports Commission, only 32 of them have female coaches. Also, there have been an alarmingly low representation of women coaches in the national pool. On record, female coaches comprise about 14 to 17% of the total coaches population from 2016 to 2020. So the Magna Carta of Women in Sports contains women's in sports rights. Knowing this, by all concerned stakeholders will hopefully address some issues, some concerns, and gaps in women in sports in the country. Join me to check on the provisions of this beautiful law for us women, the RA 9710. There are about several paragraphs that was provided containing comprehensively our rights as women in sports. Starting off with Section 14, the Women in Sports, the state shall develop, shall establish, and strengthen the programs for the participation of women and girl children in competitive and non-competitive sports as a means to achieve excellence, promote physical and social well-being, eliminate gender role stereotyping, and provide equal access to the full benefits of development for all persons regardless of sex, gender identity, and other similar factors. For this purpose, All sports-related organizations shall create guidelines that will establish and integrate affirmative action as a strategy and gender equality as a framework in planning and implementing their policies, budgets, programs, and activities relating to the participation of women and girls in sports. To this date, these guidelines on gender equality are yet to be established. In fact, last week, the Board of the Philippine Sports Commission approved a milestone policy that all NSA, number one, maintaining women events whose training program is wholly or partially subsidized by the PSC, must endeavor to include at least one female coach in its coaching pool, particularly to handle female athletes during training and competitions. And another policy approved by the Philippine Sports Commission is that NSA, which are yet to comply with this policy, are given 6 months from the issuance of this regulation as a preparatory period to select, train, and include in its coaching pool a female coach to handle female athletes. In relation to this, female athletes participating in any international competition must be accompanied and handled by at least one female coach. Section 70, paragraph B of the IRR of 9710 also provides that no sports events or tournament will offer or award a different sport prize with respect to its amount or value to women and men winners in the same sports category, provided that the said tournament, contest, race, match, event, or game is open to both sexes, and provided further that the sport event or tournament is divided into male or female divisions. If we check on Republic Act 10699, an act expanding the coverage of incentive granted to national athletes and coaches, the declared policy of this law is to promote excellence in sports by looking after the welfare of national athletes and coaches competing for the country, and by providing benefits and incentives for national athletes and other athletes who win in international sports competitions and bring honor and recognition to the country. Section 17 of the IRR of the Magna Carta of Women, paragraph 3, provides that all sports-related organizations shall also ensure the safety and well-being of all women and girls participating in sports, especially but not limited to trainees, reserve members, coaches, mentors of national sports teams, whether in studying, training, or performing phases, by providing them comprehensive health and medical insurance coverage, as well as integrated medical, nutritional, and healthcare services. The Philippine Sports Commission, or the PSC, has since its birth been taking care of and funding the safety and well-being of all women and girls in the national pool. It is also mandated that all sports organizations down there in the grassroots shall take care of the well-being of their women and girl athletes. On the same IRR, Section 17, paragraph 4, it also provides that schools, colleges, universities, or any other learning institution shall take into account its total women student population in granting scholarship. There are also a pro rata representation of women in the athletic scholarship program based on the percentage of women in the whole student population. Given that the sports and inter-university and colleges sports-related competitions are gaining popularity nowadays, we believe that there are universities who are very generous on this and have given non-monetary incentives to their athletes. Section 17 of the IRR provides that the PSC, or the Philippine Sports Commission, the GAB, DepEd, JED, SUCs, LGUs, and other sports-related organizations shall endeavor to train more female coaches for girls and women's team, to form more girls and women's team in athletic leagues or games. We are yet to see a bright outlook of this provision, but at least the PSC policy is a baby step towards the growth in number of female coaches and female athletes. There's also a provision in the IRR that the PSC and the Game and Amusement Board shall provide financial and other incentives to local government units, media organizations, and the private sector for promoting training and preparing women and girls in participation in competitive and non-competitive sports. especially in local and international events, including but not limited to the Palarong Pambansa, to the Southeast Asian Games, and the Olympics. The Magna Carta of Women pushed the PSC, GAB, DepEd, CHED, SUCs, and other sports-related organizations in providing travel grants of women leaders, coaches, and athletes with adequate support mechanism, and also to provide sufficient funds to support girls and women in sports. The law also provides for the Philippine Sports Commission, the Gaming and Amusement Board, DepEd, CHED, LGUs, and other sports-related organizations to endeavor to collect sex disaggregated data in sports participation. The global sports analytics market size is expected to reach at $4.6 billion by 2025, expanding at the compounded annual growth rate of 31.2%, according to a new study by Grandview Research Incorporated. Increasing preference for sports as a career option, coupled with the growing demand for tracking and monitoring live data of players, is expected to drive the market growth. The use of analytics in sporting events help different stakeholders, including sports person associations and fanatics, to give in-depth insights of the live in-game activity as well as the past game events. The law also contains that the PSC or the GAB, DepEd, CHED, SUCs, LGUs, and other sports-related organizations shall endeavor to promote partnerships with community-based sports organizations. And lastly, the Philippine Sports Commission, Game and Amusement Board, the DepEd, CHED, SUCs, LGUs, and other sports-related organizations shall endeavor to increase the participation of the women with disabilities and indigenous women through the promotion and development of programs for them. Given all the above provisions, there have been a lot of government efforts, particularly the PSC or the Philippine Sports Commission, to advocate and promote the participation of women in sports. This discussion is just a piece of the pie of the Magna Carta of Women. Of course, there have been a lot of provisions in areas that would champion and advocate to ensure that women's rights are protected. Women's that should not be discriminated and should be provided equal treatment, afforded same opportunity with others, and women are empowered. And most importantly, we are recognized to be part of the nation building. Again, thank you for inviting me to this short session. And have a good day ahead. Maraming salamat.